Steve, can I ask? We've heard about how these two approach that the thoughts of and tips about how you can approach that subject. But is there anything else from your kind of research about how parents can approach that conversation? What ways that they can?
I mean, I do think it's very much about the family and the way that they communicate anyway. And I think families will kind of instinctively know. But I think certainly the first thing I would, and I do suggest to parents, is you might want to start by actually asking the child what they know. And I don't know whether your experience with this, generally find out that perhaps the children know more than the parents realise.
Right.
Very perceptive, aren't they?
Yeah. So that's generally where I would sort of say that you would start off having a conversation like that.
Yeah.
I think one point to make as well is that, we're all, white British, aren't we? That other cultures in Britain might not necessarily have the same views on talking about children with cancer as we have. So I think I kind of, need to make that.
Yes.
Some faith groups might find that difficult, and some of the different groups that I've worked with, talking to children about cancer is just an absolute no-no, and we kind of have to respect that as well. So we're not perhaps representative of the diversity of Britain, are we here? So just to say that as well.
That's a really important point. And also age-wise as well, like we've got a 4-year-old and nearly 2 and a 2-year-old. And so Steve, I might start with you then, and maybe you guys can feed in on how you, from your own experiences. But speaking with older children, what the conversation is clearly going to be different and things. But what is going to be different?
Well, I think certainly a child from sort of 5 onwards would understand that the seriousness of an illness, and they would understand the concept of death as well, the finality of it. So then, if you're talking to an adolescent, a teenager, you would obviously talk in a very different way than you would with a child. And I think it's also about the languages that you can use, particularly around cancer. I think a 10-year-old would have heard about cancer on the television, or would know a celebrity or whatever, wouldn't they? So, and I think it's very important not to use words that are perhaps confusing. I mean, use lump and everything, but I think at some point in the conversation you really do need to use the word cancer so that the child knows that that's what they're dealing with. I think
You're not scared of saying it.
Yeah, but also that they know that that's what it is. Because I think if you say tumour or all the other words, malignancy and all the other words we have for it, I think it might be confusing.
Those are almost a bit scarier. Cancer isn't so much a scary word, but then malignant tumour, that can be quite terrifying.
It does sound quite terrifying.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Laura, from the network as well that you've been getting some advice from, has there been any thoughts from parents who've had older children?
Yeah, what somebody said, finding positive examples is really important. So when she told her children she had breast cancer, she said that her children knew 10 other women who'd had breast cancer and were still in their lives. And so she could point to those examples, and because I think for some people they think of cancer and they think that you're going to die. So yeah, I guess just reassuring them that that's not necessarily the case.
Yes, yeah.
And just I think what came through was just letting them process it in their own way. But no, like, you can't say, right, this is when we're going to have the talk, and then we'll talk about it, and they'll ask all their questions, and then we'll never talk about it again. It has to be an ongoing dialogue, doesn't it? That they can come to you any time, because you might have a child who, like we were saying, needs to go away and think about it and then come back to you. You might have a child who asks loads of questions up front. So I think adapting your response to the age of the child, but also just what the child's like, because everybody's a bit different.
And the parents normally are the ones who know best about how to connect with their child.
You'd hope so.
Yes, yeah. I'm sure there are plenty who don't.
I think at any age, this is never just a one-off conversation that's had and then that's the end of that, is it? Particularly. So it's about keeping communication open, saying, you can come back and ask me more questions at any time, really. It's not a conversation you have and then put that away, is it, really?
Well, because it's not that kind of illness, is it? You're often looking at 6 months or a year of treatment, and you'll have times in that when you feel really bad and other times when you're fine, and you are doing the nursery pickup and the school run and things like that. And so I guess they have to know that there's a long road ahead, but it won't all be, you won't be in hospital the whole time and feeling your worst the whole time. It's like, I mean, you're still in your chemo cycle and you have, like, you seem really well today, but you have days when you're well and days when you're not.
Yeah, she definitely knows about the days I'm not. It's kind of, it's a bit upsetting when she comes through to bedroom and I'm just lying there, just existing, and she wants to play. I'm just like, God, and Sally has to take her away.
Does she have a doctor's kit?
Yeah.
My daughter likes to get a stethoscope on and...
Yeah, she gets a stethoscope. She tries to take my temperature as well. Take my temperature, putting the stethoscope in my ears, telling me to listen to her heart.
Anything I can do lying down.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Can we talk about so we talked about the talk and like how we might broach that subject, but as you've just perfectly put, is that it isn't just a one conversation thing. Like, parenting goes on, the cancer treatment still goes on, and you have to put systems in place to be able to manage the things that the day-to-day grind of being a parent. And so have you seen things that you've had to put in to work out how to continue being the best parent you can be?
I still get very tired. I have kind of lingering, I think there's a common misconception that you finish your treatment and then it's behind you.
Yes.
And because I didn't have 2 children before my cancer, I'll never know how much of my tiredness is just having 2 children and how much of it is the after effects of the treatment and the surgeries I've had and everything. But yeah, like, we have a support network in place. I think over the whole period, my children have seen a lot more of their grandparents than they would have done otherwise, but that's a great thing because they love seeing their grandparents, and it probably means that they've got a stronger relationship with their grandparents than they might have had otherwise, because of that extra time spent together. But I'm always thinking, because I found out I have the BRCA gene mutation, which puts you at high risk of breast and ovarian cancer for women, and there's a 50% chance of both my children carrying that gene. So I know that in the future, like now, they're too young to really remember much about what went on, but at some point I have to sit them down and explain that when they're adults, they've got this opportunity to find out whether they carry that gene, and then all that entails, see a genetics counsellor and decide. I mean, I felt lucky in a way that I didn't find out until I was in my mid-30s, but if my daughter might find out she's BRCA positive when she's 18, 19, and have to start making decisions then about her ovaries and her breasts, and so I feel like it's looming in my future as well. Even if the cancer never comes back, it's still, at some point I have to talk to my older children about cancer and explain what happened. Explain to my daughter when I was still pregnant with you, this is what went on, and and the implications for her as an adult, which obviously makes me really sad and quite, you feel quite guilty even though I couldn't have known.
Well, yes, yeah, and that lingering thing must continue to have an effect on the way that you're being the parent that you want to be. And are there things that you've had to, when you were having, like, you said about your grandparent, their grandparents coming along and being involved, but were you having to juggle, like, the kind of management of where do people go and
yeah, there was a lot of that, because we had shortly after my diagnosis my sister had a stroke, and so there was my newborn and my sister's newborn. We had babies a week apart, and then we both had an older child, and then I was having chemo, my sister was in intensive care, my parents were involved, my husband's parents, my brother-in-law. It was madly chaotic time, and that kind of is still with it. I was saying to you earlier, if I sit down and I'm not doing anything, I feel like, where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing? Because we all had to. It only worked if we were all where we were supposed to be at all times. Like, this person is going to chemo with Laura, this person is visiting Rachel, this person is looking after the babies. So Yeah, it was.
So now you sit still and you think, what, I should be thinking about something. There should be something I'm
and
doing.
there was daily admin
Right.
for the next day of like, and I write a blog, and part of the reason I started my blog is just to point everybody to, because every day I had WhatsApp, Facebook, email messages to respond to. I'd sit down in the evening and be like, right, I need to get back to this person. Everybody wanted to know what was going on and where things were up to, and it was because they cared and wanted to know. But then I would just say, look, just read my blog, and I can't email everybody every night telling them what's happening.
Yes.
So that was like an admin job. I'd write my blog. I mean, I'm a writer anyway, so it kind of came quite naturally to me to do that. But then, and my mum as well, she would say, read Laura's blog, that's like, everything's in there. You know, because you do just find yourself doing a lot of keeping people posted on what's going on.
Right, yes. And Sandy, so have you had put systems in place as such?
Well, she goes to childminders 3 times a week.
Right.
That's about it really, because we live quite a long way away from any family.
Right.
My partner's family's closer, but still they all work and her sisters all go to school, so there's not many people who can take her during the day. So she's actually, my partner has put her PhD on hold at the minute, and is at home all the time looking after her, which I take my hat off for. I can't do that. I couldn't do that. Like, obviously I can look after her, but I can't, like, I couldn't do that and be there for me. Like, it's crazy. She's holding a family together whilst I'm not.
Yes.
Because you're so much younger than me, I guess all the parents, your parents and her parents, are all still working, like you say, whereas my parents and my in-laws are retired, so at least they are a bit freer to help us out.